What is up, heathens? Today we have another interview, and it's with Zaunstar here. If you guys are not subscribers of Zaunstar, why aren't you? Go over to his channel right now. I got him linked down below. Subscribe to him. Tell him that I sent you. And we're going to be doing an interview today. He has an interview of me up on his channel, so if you want to go over there and see me talk about, my past and maybe what kind of video games I like and stuff, you can go and do that. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. Hi there, Zon. How you doing?
Hello, John. How's it going? Mr. Godless Engineer. Good to see you.
Yeah. It's going pretty good here. I'm really excited to be on this interview with you today. I mean, I've watched your videos for the past couple of years, and it was really great for you to reach out to me and want to do this.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that. And I checked, and you subscribed in July of 2014. That's when he subscribed to me. I did a search, like, oh, that's where he subscribed to me.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I've been watching for a while, so cool. I really appreciate your content, and that's why everybody watching this now, go and look.
Thank you.
Stuff.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So my first question is, were you religious growing up, and what kind of role did religion play, in your past?
So I'm one of the relatively few people around YouTube who was never religious. I was not religious growing up, and I was never religious from then on. So I've never been a believer in God or religion. But obviously, being in this country, which is a fairly religious country, especially back then, even, there definitely, of course, were plenty of influences. I didn't really talk much about atheism in school because everybody was religious and everybody was like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you believe in God? And even in, I know it's different regionally, of course. But you being in Alabama, I could see that sort of thing, like in the deep South. They have that reputation of being much more religious. But even in upstate New York, where I'm from, there still is plenty of religion up there. It's just a little different. It's maybe a little bit less hardcore, but there's still a lot of influence in it. It was not. It was one of those things that I had always pretty much been resigned to being a tiny, tiny minority, but I'm fascinated now that we're becoming so much more of a force. And just in the time since I've started doing YouTube videos since 2009, it was right around this time of year, 8 years ago, I started making videos, and we're leaps and bounds ahead of where we were there in terms of acceptance and in terms of a broad spectrum of people who are atheists now and probably atheists. My dad is atheist as well. My grandpa was atheist and was an atheist. So, but there of course was religion in my family. And there's some of my extended family are Jehovah's Witnesses, and some of my extended family are, this and that kind of thing, this and that sort of sect of Christianity. But no, I'm not. I never have been.
Well, I'm kind of curious. Like, I don't know if you remember it all, but like when you first encountered people that believed in God or whatnot, like what was your reaction to that whole concept of like a deity?
So my reaction was that it didn't really, the mythology and everything, because I was not taken at a young age and given this information, I'll put in air quotes, I wasn't given this information, the story, this mythology. It didn't have the same ring to it. And that is one thing that's true. What religious people say is like, yeah, you got to get them as kids, because if you get them later, they're probably not going to believe it, because who would? But if you start them really young, as their minds are being shaped, and you tell them that basically magic, in a different form or a different name, is real, then sure, you can get them first thing out of the gate and get them believing. So that was really when I heard their stories about religion or about their idea of God and all that, it just always rung hollow to me. because it didn't seem any more believable than any of the other fantasy novels and science fiction novels that I would read. It read the same to me.
Okay. I'm kind of curious, how do you feel about childhood indoctrination? Like, some people feel that it's child abuse, and others are against that idea. But I'm kind of curious. Do you feel that it's kind of child abuse or not?
I hesitate to go down the path of child abuse as a blanket statement for all religion. Partly for the same reason that I don't like the whole the religion as a mental illness kind of argument. I don't think that's entirely accurate, and I also think it muddies the terms of mentally, and it also muddies the terms of things like a cult. When you say like all religion is a cult, then how do you describe a religion that is really more cult-like in the traditional sense of it, like Jehovah's Witnesses, where you are taught to shun people who leave the religion, that kind of thing? Like, how do you tell those two things apart at that point? And yes, there's an aspect to most religions that can be cult-like, but again, I would stop short of just naming all religions cults, because then it's just like the word just doesn't have any meaning anymore. But yeah, that's my take on that typically.
Yeah, I always I usually go with that the indoctrination can be abusive,
yes,
but that it's not inherently so.
Right.
Is generally my position on that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But so I'm having to augment a little bit here my line of questions. When did you realize that you were an atheist? Like, I know that you said that you had always been atheist, but like in your earlier life, did you just not believe in a God and then later found out that you were an atheist, or like the entire time you knew?
Right. And it was one of those things that I didn't realize until I started having conversations with other people, and people started telling me about their religion and that sort of thing. But as I said, upstate New York is not particularly big on fundamentalist religion. They tend to be more Catholic, which Catholics, of course, they certainly have their issues. But when it comes to science, they tend to be not quite as, when it comes to at least like creationism, they tend to not be literal creationists. So that sort of thing, the whole evolution argument and that sort of thing, that kind of thing was present sometimes, but it was not in the forefront of the discussion. And my dad is retired now, but he was a high school biology teacher for 33 years. And so that, having that background of that in the house, and always understanding science, and he still has this enormous library of science books, and I loved them. I certainly didn't go through anywhere near the whole library of them. A lot of them were way over my head at that age. But I did read a lot of them, and I was very interested in science. And to me, that was magic that was real, as the T-shirts that you get say. So that really shaped my ideas on that.
Okay. I'm kind of curious, like, what has been the best argument for God that you've really encountered? So
the best argument for God, the best of a bunch of bad arguments. How do you pick the best of the worst arguments? I think, well, if I can slightly flip that a little bit, maybe it's the most compelling arguments. And I think to some people, I mean, even this argument kind of sounds dopey to me, but to some people, this has a lot of weight to it. Like the fact that, like, the rest of the universe, at least as much as we can see, which isn't very much, by the way, the rest of the universe is like cold and lifeless or whatever, or mostly lifeless, at least what we can see. But then here we have this amazing civilization that, of course, we can't compare to any other civilization because we just can't see that far yet. But to a lot of people, that's a compelling argument. To a lot of people whose experience with the world doesn't go much beyond their front door or their town or whatever, it doesn't. That kind of argument is very compelling. If your view is very narrow and you think that all that there is what we is kind of what we see in our exact and right in our proximity right now. And they discount the fact that we're being able to see further and further into space with better telescopes and all of that. Then that becomes a very compelling argument. Just telling them, it's just a dumbed down version of the God of the Gaps, kind of. But yeah, to some people that can be compelling.
Okay. And then on the flip side, which might be a little bit easier of a question, what's the worst argument for God?
The worst argument for God. I would say I would say that probably the proposition that God is, let's see. So if you don't believe, I forgot the name of it. It starts with P, I think. The proposition that if you are a believer and it turns out that it's not true that there's a God, then you are losing nothing. Whereas if you are not a believer and then there is a God, then you're screwed because God is going to destroy you. I actually did a video of Pascal's wager. That's what it was. So Pascal's wager is probably one of the silliest arguments for God that I've heard. I did a video on it years ago. Actually, it was kind of fun. Yeah, because I think what people forget in that argument is people are forgetting that you are investing time, you are investing part of your life into that. And while there's some things that you can invest into religion that are not going to necessarily be harmful, like spending time with family or whatever, okay, that's fine. You can do that through religion, or you can do that through any number of a million different means. But if you are doing things like speaking out against LGBT people, or you are speaking out against equality for women, or speaking out against equality for racial equality or anything like that, if you're doing any of those things in what you think is the name of your religion, then you're actually harming society, but then you're not getting any reward for it from your God. So yeah, that's what I think about that.
Okay. I'm kind of curious, what kind of advice could you give someone that's questioning their faith right now?
So the advice that I would give for that is, yes, continue to go where the evidence leads in terms of, reading some books about religion and seeing whether it squares up with reality when it comes to its claims. Because religions make claims. They make very bold claims, typically, very, very huge claims that they know everything about everything. And then if you take some of those claims and are able to shoot them down through science or through other various other means, then what does that mean about the veracity of that entire religion? It's also one of those things that, on sort of a tangent topic, you also want to be very careful about how you go about coming out as an atheist, because there are a lot of situations that people find themselves in where they're at home and they're dependent on their parents to pay for college and that kind of thing. That's not the kind of thing that you want to get yourself in a position of losing all of that at once. So you need to kind of feel out your parents when it comes to how you come out. If you say that, like, oh, I'm kind of questioning something, instead of, even if you're already sure that you are an atheist and that's that, before you come right out and say that, you may want to test the waters by saying, I'm kind of questioning, whether God is real, or even just a softer version of that, to say I'm questioning whether all the tenets of our religion are correct, or that kind of thing. See what their reaction is first. because if you roll that very minor thing out and your parents freak out, then you might want to dial it back just a bit and keep it to yourself, keep it private for a while, because you don't want to be in a position where your parents are suddenly not going to help you with college because you've got this, you don't believe the same thing that they do. So yeah, in terms of going back to terms of reading, yeah, there's plenty of books out there by a lot of well-known atheists like Dawkins and Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens and all. It just everybody everybody that is well known within atheism, but yeah, there's if you want to see the atheist view on things, those certainly would be some places to start. That would be a great start.
I know that this video collaboration is more for both of our channels, but I'm wondering, are there any other channels out there that you really suggest people that are in that position of, questioning or just now coming out as an atheist? Like, are there any good channels that you would suggest that they check out? What's up, heathens? I know you're probably wanting to see this particular portion of the interview. Zaunstar answers a few questions here, namely, the one that you just heard. What are the channels that he would suggest? But then he also answers some gaming questions and about what he does in his spare time. So if you want to get to know Zaunstar a little bit better, you can go right on over to my Patreon, and just for $1 a month, you can get access to any and all private videos that I upload. So if you want to head on over there right now and pledge that $1, you can see this portion of the interview. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of it. So kind of getting back on to the original conversation here, I'm kind of curious, what really motivated you to create your channel and to start speaking out?
So for me, it was being part of the conversation. I was fine with, I'd talk in the comments and talk to various people, and I enjoyed being part of the conversation and not just a commenter. I wanted to have some content as well and kind of be able to express myself and have a place where if people ask me a question, I could literally just tell them, hey, I talked about all of this in this video. If you want to check out this video, this would be, a thing. This would be a way to be able to explain myself to many people at once. And then I started to, get more into. I wanted to promote my channel and get more people to watch and everything. And so, over the years have steadily built up. And I hadn't for a while. I hadn't been posting as much, but I'm posting more again now. Partly I was over the summer. I was busy traveling all over the place for work. So, but yeah, I've been posting videos semi-regularly now for 8 years. So yeah, it's been that long, but a lot of good influences over the years and people that I've looked up to. So yeah.
Well, you posed this question to me on my interview, so I thought that it would be nice to reciprocate.
Sure.
And, what kind of value do you bring that people should subscribe to you and support you on Patreon?
So yeah, I would say that what I bring to the table is I bring content that is not just atheism, but that's certainly part of what I bring as well. I do like to talk about cultural issues, and I do like to talk about travel occasionally. I have put up quite a few videos over the years about various places I've been, that kind of thing. And I do talk about politics quite a bit as well. That's certainly an interest of mine also. If you're looking for a channel of rabid anti-SJWs, I'm not your guy. That's just, I'm just exasperated and sick to death of that topic. Yes, I will sometimes talk about, I guess, cultural issues. I guess maybe that is the larger category there. But I'm not I'm not really one of those people that's interested in saying, oh, look at that crazy feminist over there, ha ha ha. It's like, of course, there's crazy people all over the place of all stripes of all ideologies, but most of the time they're just people that can best be ignored. And sure, sometimes I'll throw something out there where it's like, okay, well, this person is ridiculous, and here's why. But I try not to make it. I try not to make it super personal. It's just not my deal. But I try to. I don't really talk a lot about those issues, mostly just because it's become so much of what YouTube atheist community is these days, and frankly, it kind of sucks. But I'm trying to do what I can to elevate things a little bit, but not be. I don't want to be, but I still want to keep it interesting, and keep it topical. So yeah, that's kind of my take on things. But I also do. I talk a lot in the comments. I mean, I answer a very high percentage of my comments, and I'll sometimes take hours just responding to comments. Sometimes if I got a video that has a lot of comments, I'll respond because I love the interaction. I enjoy it. And I'm the kind of person that likes to talk in general. I'm an extrovert, and I do like having conversations. So that's part of why I do what I do, because I like that communication aspect of it.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I remember, I think it was maybe a year ago or so, I had made actually a response video to one of your videos.
Right.
And I mean, I thought that we had a very nice exchange there. And,
yeah.
Even though we disagreed on that one particular thing, I mean, I think that it's fine. Like,
yeah, I don't even think we completely disagreed. I think we were actually in more agreement than some of the commenters. Not all of them, but some of the commenters on my video. I think your take was actually a lot more reasonable than some of the people that were going in there screaming like, Zaunstar, you're such a herpa or whatever, and it was about like Black Lives Matter or something, and I wasn't even like putting it out there that like, I mean, I've literally not lifted a finger for Black Lives Matter. I'm not a part of the organization, but I was like, guys, the whole terrorism thing, that's probably a bit much. And everybody's like, oh no, they're definitely terrorists. They're like, I was like, are you serious? Like, that was part of what opened my eyes to like, I'm like, wow, this is what we've become now. I'm not even someone that I'm fine with having those conversations. I mean, I don't block anybody unless they're like literally just spamming my channel. So my block list is literally like 5 people. I mean, I'm always open for conversation. I'm not that kind of person. And that's part of the issue I have with both super SJWs and super anti-SJWs, is they can be a little blocky sometimes. I don't, it's not great. But on the other hand, I can understand the exasperation on some people's parts where they're like, come on guys, enough, we really have to talk about how the feminazis 24/7 is like, it's so not, it's useless.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm glad that you're as tired of the anti-SJW, SJW divide as I am. Because, I mean, I do talk on those issues occasionally, but at the same time, like, I feel like it's a very toxic conversation in general.
It is. It just becomes, and when I say feminazis, I say that in big air quotes as well, because there are some people that like the least bit of, like, I've literally seen people like, they'll come out with like suicide statistics or something for girls or something, and then someone will tweet about it on Twitter and say, oh, I guess boys are chopped liver or something like that. I'm like, come on, are you serious? How do you it's just, and there's so many of those channels that have popped up, especially the anti-SJW channels, people that literally started their channels like 2 years ago, and now they have like 400,000 subscribers, and they're all full of like, pissed off dudes railing against how terrible it is to be a white guy these days because they're so put upon. And like, geez, I don't know. I seem to get quite a bit of deference personally, but it comes to my life. But whatever.
Yeah, no, you know, I've always kind of shied away from the channels that primarily, you know, focus like for instance, like I'll watch them for a little bit, but after that, it just kind of gets tiring.
Yeah.
You know, just the whole conversation. So,
Yeah.
but Zaunstar, I'm really glad that you were able to join me today. And I hope you heathens out there will go and subscribe to him right now. Consider supporting him on Patreon as well.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it, and it's been great having this conversation, this discussion. So yeah, so those of you who are, and as I said in my interview with you, I definitely recommend that everybody subscribe to you as well. So we'll get some what do they call it in corporate land? Synergy. That's what it is. Synergy. Right. So yeah. So thanks for chatting with me, and yeah, we'll be in touch.
Yeah. Like I said, everybody go subscribe to him right now, and we will see you heathens later. Also, don't forget, stand up, use your voice, just like both of us here.
Exactly.